Okay, so we're starting. Hey everybody, I'm Jim Schneider, and this is my video podcasting called Work in Progress, where I talk to my friends about the work they do and why they do it. And I'm very honored to have my friend Alexis Romano. Can I say Dr. Alexis Romano?
You can say that if you would like.
I will. And the great thing about having you as a guest is that I can give you a proper introduction. I'm usually very lazy about it, but Alexis has a book with an introduction in it, which I can find. Where is your introduction? Or your bio?
There's no bio in my book.
No, there definitely is.
Oh.
Oh yeah, it's right on the back.
There is a bio.
So let me read the bio on the back jacket of the book. So Alexis Romano is a scholar of dress, design history, and visual culture. She teaches at Parsons School of Design and is co-founder of the Fashion Research Network. She holds a PhD, hence doctor, from the Courtauld Institute of Art and was the 2020-2021 Curatorial Fellow at the Met's Costume Institute. Is that all accurate?
That's accurate. Thank you.
Anything I
a
can...
Lovely, very, very formal introduction.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you to the writer. Did you write that?
Yes.
Okay. And it's all still true?
It's all still true. I'm still at Parsons. Uh-huh. They haven't taken away the doctorate, so...
They didn't strip you of the title?
No.
Why would they?
Not yet. For doing some bad art history.
No, I'm sure you haven't done any bad art history. So you're an art historian, a fashion historian, right?
Yeah.
Let's talk about your path to becoming a fashion historian.
Sure.
Where did it begin?
Well, I studied art history and I guess didn't really know what I was going to do with that. I'd also always been really interested in fashion, and I guess I had a sort of aha moment when I saw an exhibition at a museum in Antwerp, one of the best fashion museums in the world, the Mode Museum. And I had probably seen exhibitions of dress before. Yeah, I had, but they're not, now they're much more popular, but I guess I hadn't seen that many of them, and when I did, it just all kind of made sense, and I thought, yeah, this is really the subject that I want to be working on. And I'd always been interested, or I'd realized at that point that I'd always been interested in design and objects that we use and wear, more than sort of,
Painting,
monumental
sculpture.
Things like that. And so from there, I got, I did graduate work, further graduate work in design history. So really my interest is more that, design history, material, and visual culture, and how dress kind of fits into that, to those pictures. And what fashion can tell us, and this is something that kind of developed as I was studying, but what fashion can tell us about ourselves and people and relationships and sort of social dynamics, more than just studying, beautiful things.
Right.
Even though I think fashion can be very beautiful, and that is very thrilling. But yeah, that's kind of that's the trajectory of getting to studying dress history and dress. Not only history, I'm interested in contemporary fashion, but to getting to where I am.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I want to talk to you about contemporary fashion a little bit later. Where did you study art history?
I studied it in college at Loyola University in Baltimore, and then I did a little bit of graduate work in Paris, because I also am very interested in French culture and history. That's where I moved after college. So I was a student at the Sorbonne, Université de Paris.
Oh, yeah.
and that was where I had my aha moment at the museum.
Uh-huh.
So I started to bring fashion into that. And then I went to the Bard Graduate Center in New York, which is a great place for studying design history and material culture. Mm-hmm. And then I did my PhD in London at the Courtauld Institute of Art, as you already told the camera.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just read it off the book. Yeah. Okay. So you've lived in a lot of different places. Yeah. We're in New York. I should mention, by the way, that we're in New York, because that'll come into play later in our conversation when we talk about your exhibition. Oh. We're in New York City, which is your hometown, right?
Yes.
From
the actual hometown, the actual borough?
Yeah, which borough are you from?
I was born in Brooklyn, and I grew up on Staten Island.
You were born in Brooklyn?
Yes.
Where, Bay Ridge?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
And then you moved to Staten Island?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And I've been all over this town.
Yeah. Well, have you lived in other boroughs? Queens?
No.
The Bronx?
No, but where I live now, I'm close to Queens.
Yeah.
But I've never lived there.
In Queens. I lived in Queens.
Or the Bronx. You did live in Queens.
Lovely borough.
It is.
Yeah, you should get up there.
Yes, I should.
But Staten Island is very nice too. I just spent a couple of hours there at your fashion exhibition, which I have the catalog for here. It's called Staten Island Mode, Identity, Memory, and Fashion. Can you tell me about your exhibition a little bit and what was the impetus for this exhibition?
So thank you, and thank you for coming to the opening.
Oh, my pleasure.
And that exhibition literally opened 2 days ago.
Yeah.
So I'm still, catching up on sleep and life. But the impetus, I suppose, it began a few years ago when I was still living in London, and met up with a colleague, friend, who I knew from fashion history things, and we were getting to know each other a little bit better. We were having a drink, and we realized we both grew up on Staten Island and just knew each other instantly on a different level, the way you would know someone who grew up in your hometown.
Yeah, for sure.
And she's a fashion curator, Jenna Rossi Camus, and she's brilliant. And we kind of got the idea to have a fashion exhibition on Staten Island around, or the seed was planted. Yeah. And then we developed it over the years. But we wanted to bring fashion to that borough, because normally when you want to see a fashion exhibition, there are plenty of options in Manhattan. Yeah. And also Brooklyn, but not on Staten Island. And the borough is also, it's called the Forgotten Borough. There's a lot of, it's sad. Even though there are great, creative people and cultural institutions there, two of which do have clothing collections. There.
Do you want to name them? What are they?
Yeah, I'll name them.
Were you going to get to it? Did I interrupt you? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I thought about naming them, but I didn't. So the Staten Island Museum on Snug Harbor, and and historic Richmond Town, which actually has a great collection that relates to Staten Island life, not only clothes, but all kinds of other things. And so we thought that no one was really taking advantage of these collections, and we wanted to elevate them in a museum. And the exhibition developed into something that is not a museum or a display of museum archival things along the way, and I can tell you more about what the show is. But yeah, that was the initial kind of thought behind doing something.
When the seed was planted.
When the seed was planted.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and you can tell me a little bit more about what the show is. How did it go forward from there? When the seed was planted, how did it grow and blossom
Yeah.
and bloom?
Well, so it blossomed through, I guess, conversations with people who worked. Well, I moved back to New York after I was living in London, where I'm based now, and I still have ties to Staten Island and to certain cultural institutions. And one person in particular, Melissa West, who's the vice president of curatorial affairs at this museum gallery called the Newhouse Center for Contemporary Art. I was really interested in what she was doing there, trying to bring in more diverse audiences and display works that are not typical to, I guess, a contemporary art gallery, and yeah, it developed basically into an exhibition about what people wear and how that connects them to their local identity, to their various identities, to their through the experience of dress. So the exhibition is basically puts people's actual clothes on display and is more of a contemporary perspective of fashion in Staten Island.
Yeah, their actual clothes were on display. So in one room, in sort of the main hall, what was the name of that space?
That space, so the exhibition has 4 different spaces, 4 different approaches to the display of fashion, and 4 names. So that is denizens. So really thinking about people and citizens of a place. And you can see the portraits that we took of participants. We put out a call for participation. We also just reached out to certain people, and the word sort of spread through various networks. So we set up this pop-up photography studio last year, took photographs of people wearing, well, I should say Michael McQueenie, our brilliant project photographer, spearheaded all of this. He captured people on a 1950s plate camera in a photo shoot, in a fashion photo shoot, but also his interest is really, documentary photography, so it sort of blurred the lines between those two genres. And so those portraits are all around the walls, large format portraits, and then on display are racks throughout the space. This one particular gallery, which kind of give you constellations of people's fashion lives, so some garments, some photos,
and what they wore in the portraits as well, right?
In
some cases, yeah. And this is an example of one of the portraits, right? So, and you know who this is, I assume, right? And then the portraits were amazing. And your mother is included in here as well, right?
Yeah, the exhibition took a personal turn. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, it's okay. I had nowhere else to go.
Yeah, so there are some people who we knew before, and of course, complete strangers. Just a mix of a sampling of different fashionable identities.
Did all the portraits happen on the same day? Did everyone come into a space and have their portrait taken?
No, we did it over maybe 2 weeks.
Oh, okay.
Because not every day of those 2 weeks, but we also, in addition to taking their picture, we interviewed them. So
there was the video.
Yeah,
component.
Exactly. So it took some time, and we didn't show everyone's portrait. We just we edited it down to about 20 people.
Out of how many?
I say we photographed 40.
Oh,
so
okay.
about half.
Well, yeah, there really wasn't. I don't know how you would have been able to include any more than what you had in there. Did you have a portrait taken of yourself?
Actually, we did not.
Really?
We kept running out of time,
Uh-huh.
and Michael never photographed Jenna and I.
You weren't
It was
interested
always
in that,
like
or
we
why?
have to do. No, we were running around and doing a million things.
I would have
We
had to
never-
have my own
But-
portrait taken.
Yes. Well,
If it were
you know,
me,
you're very
but
vain.
I'm vain, yeah, and narcissistic.
He did.
Well, can we talk about me just for a little bit longer?
Yes, please.
Okay. No, I'm
Let's
just kidding.
get there.
That's it.
He did photograph still lives. He also, in addition to taking pictures of people, some people brought in clothes that were really special to them, or that were memories of life on Staten Island. So, like for instance, my mother was holding the prom dress that
Right.
she wore when she went to school in the early 70s on Staten Island. And Michael photographed my prom outfit and
Oh, really?
Jenna's Sweet 16 dress, but just the clothing, no people.
Did I see those? Were those on display?
No.
Oh, okay, yeah, because I didn't remember seeing either of those items. But yeah, so the exhibition was split up into these different rooms, denizens being one, and then scrim, which was a new word for me. But what does scrim mean?
Scrim refers to the fabric, the sort of curtain that. That's a good question, James.
It's involved in theater.
It's involved in the theater. I
Yeah.
don't know if it's just.
Is it in there?
This is the room that Jenna spearheaded,
Right.
And who is was a costume designer.
Was she a playwright too? She wrote some scenes for the
Where is this page?
room.
No, but she is a brilliant writer, and she was. So this room is definitely showcases like the way that this project is autoethnographic. So she envisioned her life as a film, a fake film,
Right.
and we're seeing the costume design lens. And she also provided like writings about the
Like-
actual movie.
Yeah, it was like an imagined screenplay for
Right.
the imagined film, and then
Right.
she had the costume design illustrations, right? Were those all new illustrations that she made for the exhibition?
For the most
For the most part?
but she was really drawing on her life and the drawings that she made as a child, and so she found she was able to find some of those fashion drawings, but for the most part she recreated all of them, but in the style of her old, the way that she illustrated things when she was younger.
Right. Okay.
And I'm forgetting all of the terms, and I will.
Oh, it's okay.
I
I have
will
two. The only
stop
one
looking.
I remember is scrim. Scrim.
Yes.
Yeah.
The word that I can't find in the book.
Can't define precisely, but it's related to costume design and theater. And when you want to like cover up dress or introduce the idea of I don't know, something theater related.
Right. The way that James, I'm just going to find it. It's the thing is, it's the most brilliant.
Oh, yeah, it's right there,
and,
yeah.
I just opened to it. An innovative, curatorial approach, and we're like, I'm butchering it. So scrim is a loosely woven fabric
Right.
used to create illusions of light and form
Yes.
that make objects or people appear and disappear. And here it's a metaphor for selective life storytelling. But it's also just a brilliant space. It's the only space in the show that's interactive, and you can, read through the screenplay and touch, go through the rack of clothes.
Which were those her actual clothes from her childhood, or just sort of collected things that resembled something she might have worn?
A select few were the original objects, but she sourced copies of the rest that were documented in her diaries and in her memories. And people can touch them, which is really fun.
Yeah, you could take them off the rack and look at them and read through the screenplay at the same time and look at the garment and then how it related to the screenplay. So yeah, that was the first room that I walked into, and it was very cool. I got to speak with her briefly in there and congratulate her, and she remembered meeting me years earlier.
That's right.
Because we all went to see Phantom Thread together.
That's right.
And she remembered that. I was very impressed. It's not every day somebody remembers meeting you. I always assume nobody remembers me.
Well, you make an impact.
Apparently.
So, on some people.
She remembered the movie. She certainly remembered seeing the movie. And at the theater, they had the costumes outside. You remember that?
Yes.
So she remembered that too. So maybe she remembered that more than me, and she was just flattering me. But anyway, yeah. So she had that room, the scrim room, and then the denizens room that you both worked on together. And then you also had one that you worked on yourself, right? What was the name of that one again?
That room is called Noise.
Noise, yes. Why?
It is about the way that we make noise with our clothes, and that varies.
Figurative noise, metaphorical noise.
Mainly, not only.
Because you wear those corduroy pants and they rub together,
Sure.
right? Vit, 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 vit.
Yeah, noise. Fashion makes actual sound that affects how we feel. If we're very noisy, that might make us,
It makes me self-conscious.
Exactly.
Like at the vit, vit, vit corduroy thing, or the squeaky shoes.
Squeaky shoes are the worst.
Or the sort of like
Or loud.
horse's hoof, clippity cloppity shoes. I can't. I don't like to draw that kind of attention to myself.
When you're wearing like your stilettos and you're making loud noise and you're with people in sneakers, it does something to your, psychology.
It does, for sure.
But in this case, in the case of the room, I was interested in the way we, make clothes purposefully. What did I say? Make clothes or make noise?
Make clothes.
Okay.
But you want to say make noise?
Yes.
Yeah.
So we might dress to, loudly to stand apart from the rest, or alternatively, we might dress to fit in. And that, is indicative of the relationship that we have to a place that we're in.
Sure.
So some people discussed wanting to stand out from the masses on Staten Island, and others wanted to fit in more. But then the other element in this room is the way that kind of music and performance, and actually making actual sound, how that connects to fashion and self-fashioning. And so I explored stories that I drew from my research and my interviews with people for this project, including the period of the 1980s when there was an area of Staten Island that had a lot of clubs, and people were dressing in relation to that, in relation to the different kinds of music, punk, new wave, reggae that were just proliferating at that time. And then, of course, we couldn't have this exhibition without noting Wu Wear, which is the pioneering fashion brand of the Wu-Tang Clan, who put Staten Island on the map when it came to East Coast hip hop. And so we have a few lovely pieces from that brand from the 1990s.
Wu Wear.
Wu Wear.
Yeah.
Yes. And some examples of dress that performance artists have worn on the borough and off of the borough, for instance. An incredible garment or an ensemble worn by one of our participants when he dressed in drag, and then there's some storytelling that goes along with some of the garments.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And a video.
Right.
Wu-Tang Clan
Yeah.
video, which you scan the QR code and then boop, the video pops up, and I watched it. And I had never heard that song before, actually. But it's essentially a commercial for Wu Wear.
Yes.
Right?
But a really good tune as well.
Yeah, it's a good tune. It's a fun video. What's the name of the song again? It's like Wu-Tang Clan, the
Garment Renaissance.
The Garment Renaissance, right.
It's amazing.
But it's not all the Wu-Tang. It's RZA, Method Man, and
Capadonna.
Yeah.
Yeah, but RZA is the,
He's the orchestrator.
Yes.
Yeah, he's the driving force. He's the head. Have you ever seen Wu-Tang Clan perform?
No, I never did. And when I was growing up in the 90s, that was happening. And I was very much like aware of that phenomenon and the importance that it brought to Staten Island. But I never saw them play. But some friends and one of the stories in the Denizens room is from a friend of mine in high school who would always go and hang out there in their shop on Victory Boulevard, and we're just in that environment.
Oh, so they had a Wu Wear shop there. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Is it still there?
No.
No? What was it called? Wu Wear?
Wu Wear.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. I saw them once.
You did?
In Chicago. It was a great show.
Yeah.
But it was like 2007, 2008, something like that. So they weren't all there. But sort of hard to get all of them there at a performance anyway, even in like the heyday.
Right.
They wouldn't all make it to the
So
show,
many.
I think. Yeah, they were sort of notorious for that.
Oh, how cool.
So that noise room was really interesting. And then there was also a room, what was the other room?
The final room is called Showroom,
Right.
and it is the space that gives the industry on Staten Island a platform.
Right.
So we included boutiques, retailers, fashion retailers, and some designers who are working in that room, and interviewed them. Displayed their clothing in a
on
way
mannequins.
on mannequins in a way that kind of blurs the boundary between a commercial display of fashion and museum display, because there are certainly some differences. But when you look at when you see the mannequin, it kind of does evoke that, the way that we might see clothing in a shop or in a shop window.
Yeah, I guess I hadn't really thought about that, but there is a difference between the way you see something in a store window and how you'll see it in a museum. But you don't usually see a full mannequin in a museum, right? Or do you?
You too, actually. And
Okay,
I know that I said that it was more of the commercial thing, but the majority of fashion exhibitions you predominantly use mannequins to display fashion and looks.
Are you sure about that?
I'm
just kidding. I know you're sure about that.
Oh no, did you fact check? Yeah. And we made the decision not to do that throughout the exhibition, to display garments in different ways, so to allow us to engage with them differently, and not just see them as sort of high-end pieces of expensive merchandise, but rather in ways that we could connect a little bit deeper.
Yeah, so that you could actually touch them, right, and engage
right.
with them in some of the rooms, like the scrim room. And then, what do you call the person who hangs the clothing or the garments? Is there a special name for that person?
A dresser or a mounter.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then did you also play a part in mounting or dressing, or did you have someone do that?
We did. Jenna and I are both, we both have experience with that side of things, but we also worked with a brilliant textile conservator and mounter, Katie Sabo. She's based here in New York, and she helped us with some of the more complicated objects to protect the garments. Garments are very delicate, and we wanted to make sure that the way that we were displaying them, whether on a mannequin or not, was very safe for all of these garments, which are all, for the most part, loans.
From individuals?
Yeah.
And store owners from some stores, I assume?
Exactly.
Like in the showroom?
Exactly. Yeah. From shops, individuals, and we do have one display case containing things loaned from the Staten Island Museum.
Where was that?
That was in the noise room. That was the hat and pair of shoes.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Right. Who that belonged to?
To a woman named Edith Susskind, who was just she was a sort of grande dame of Staten Island community life. She was a community leader, but she had a gift shop and did a bunch of other things, but was also really known for the way she styled, the sort of flamboyant way that she styled herself, with a lot of feathers and big hair and hats and matching accessories.
Did you know her? Because she had passed away a few years ago, right? But did you know her while she was alive, or ever come across her or know of her?
I never came, we never had the chance to meet, unless I'm just forgetting memories, which happens. But a bunch of people noted her as being just a sort of fashion force when we were, over the course of our research.
Okay. So that was a really lovely exhibition. It was very cool to be there on opening day as well, because people who were in the portraits were walking around and admiring them and showing them to their friends or people they had brought to the exhibition. So it was just really neat.
Yeah, that really, I felt that as well, that on that opening day. And the exhibition is really about people more than it's about clothes, in a sense, and their lives. And it was pleasing to know that those who had participated were, they completely understood what we were doing, and they were happy with the way that they were represented.
That's good.
Because that's always a risk.
Do you think anyone was disappointed to not be included in the portraits?
Certainly. We all get self-conscious when we see ourselves, especially when we see ourselves in, pictured in larger than life size.
Because these were really large portraits, like 4 by 3, 6 by
6 by 4.
6 by 4.
Yeah. 4 by 6.
Well, 6 this way.
I'm not going to be able to do numbers on the camera. Right. But every now and then someone was a little bit like
a little self-conscious.
But no, I think everyone was quite.
Will they get to keep those portraits? What happens to the portraits?
So those portraits will not be usable after after deinstallation, because they are on vinyls and they're stuck to the wall.
Oh, okay.
But they can definitely have their portrait.
Okay.
In another format.
Okay, so they're taken care of.
Yes.
All right, well, let's talk about another sort of narrative-related project, massive project of yours, right, that also took, I think, years and years to accomplish, right? And that's your book, which I have here, Pret-a-Porter, Paris and Women, right?
That's it.
So, first of all, was this part of your PhD?
Yeah.
Okay, and then you turned it into can we describe this as is it a textbook then? How would you describe it?
It does function as a textbook. It was my PhD dissertation, as you said,
Yeah, right.
readapted
Yeah.
to, not read as dissertation-y.
Yeah, and it doesn't. I haven't read the whole thing, but it is definitely a narrative. Well, I could say I've read it cover to cover because I've read the introduction and the conclusion, but not everything
But
in
nothing
the
else.
middle. Not everything.
Which is what all the students will do. Yeah, but it still has, it's quite, academic in a way. And
But it's a fun, I mean, what I've read of the inside is fun and narrative and includes a lot of images from 1945 to 69, 68, 69, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Paris fashion magazines like Elle, right? Kind of tells the story of Elle magazine, and you tell me more about it.
Yeah, so it is, heavily researched, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of like history and facts in there, but I did want it to be an entertaining read. And for me, fashion is just universally engaging, and and it's also equally about fashion photography and magazines. So I feel as though that's a way of teaching history, and also in this case, so various history, various narratives. But the book is, I don't think we ever said what the book is about. It looks at the history of ready-made fashion in France.
Pret-a-porter, right?
Pret-a-porter.
Ready to wear.
Exactly.
Yeah.
During this period, this post-war period, 45 to the late 60s.
Yeah. How was my pronunciation, by the way?
Very good.
Impeccable?
It's impeccable.
Oh, yeah. I studied French in high school, but
this is going to come across as very obnoxious.
No.
Yeah, your high school French.
Some of it's still there.
It really stuck.
Well, this is called, it's described as the first critical history of French ready-made fashion, right? So pret-a-porter. And this, your fashion exhibition, I saw somewhere it was described as the first exhibition dedicated to Staten Island fashion. Yeah. So how are you so good at being first?
I've got to be the first. Otherwise.
But it's hard to be the first at things. So
it's not hard if you are in the field for a long time and you can spot where there are gaps.
Okay. Yeah.
And there's a lot of gaps in fashion history and every history, art history, when it comes to things that most people can relate to. So history narratives are often about big political things and military feats. I'm generalizing, obviously.
Sports. Don't forget sports history.
I do. But when it comes to personal histories of women, which are things that I'm mainly interested in, there are some gaps. And so people have written about ready-to-wear, of course. But in French fashion history, there tends to be a focus on haute couture, which is a very exclusive, made-to-measure fashion system, as well as just very high-end fashion, certain iconic designers. And whilst my book is definitely also a story of high-end clothing, but ready-to-wear, it is certainly more accessible than, and it's the beginning of that, of making accessible ready-made fashion fashionable, and that's the narrative that I'm interested in.
Fashionable and like acceptable in a way. I mean, did people kind of turn up their nose at it before?
You did read.
45. Yeah, I told you.
Yes, but that also is a kind of narrative propagated, I think, by the fashion industry, that it's just not a nice. It's not fashionable to wear clothing that is not made to measure, not sold in specific types of retailers too.
Okay. And then so your book tells the story of how it was adapted, right, by the masses and acceptable. But
kind of.
Is that fair?
Yeah, I think it's generalizing. that, and I don't want to say that that is exactly what happened.
Yeah.
But yes, that is the kind of the we can describe the mechanism as such.
Okay, and but what was everyone wearing? I mean, it seems impossible to have, from today's perspective, where everyone's wearing ready-to-wear basically, and haute couture is, nobody can. It's expensive, is what I'm trying to say. So yeah, it's hard to imagine a world where it didn't exist, right? So was everyone wearing haute couture?
No, in fact, people were wearing ready-made clothes. They definitely were. It was big.
Since when?
Well, clothing that was not designed for a specific body has kind of always existed.
Oh, like the potato sack kind of thing?
Right, like the potato
cut the
sack.
holes.
That was a great look.
Uh-huh.
Well, you could think of like clothing that's handed down to you, or that you would find in thrift stores, which kind of always existed, but in different forms, as ready to wear. But I'd say the 19th century, with the growth of mass sort of what we would describe as a type of mass manufacture, and developing clothing and other kinds of technologies, that little by little, ready-made garments for men, certainly for menswear, began to appear in department stores that were also a new invention in the 19th century, increasingly. But in the 20th century, there certainly was ready-made garments, and even couturiers had their own. But historians and fashion writers just never really wrote about it. There is just less of an interest in things that are kind of everyday, when it comes to how we learn history, write history and learn history. But otherwise, many more people were making their own clothes, of course, than today, and going to the local seamstress, the local tailor to have things made. Very few people were actually able to afford haute couture, but that was still viewed as the only fashion when it came to magazines,
right.
And what people would end up like copying.
Higher end fashion. Okay. So, post-war to 69, right? Why would you stop at 1969?
I think I stopped at 68.
68.
But I stopped there because...
But the end of 68, so it was almost 69.
Yeah, December 31st, 1968. I stopped reading anything that was made after that. Because... Well, why did I do that? I don't remember.
Was there like a political period that worked like a bookend sort of, or a cultural movement from say 45 to 68, 69?
Yes. I wanted to look at the post-war period. So starting in 45 was I guess more obvious.
Yeah.
The fashion industry came back to life in France after the occupation, slowly. And there was a kind of a rush to modernize and to catch up to other industries, other national industries, especially the United States, who had become quite expert at doing ready-to-wear, fashionable ready-to-wear. And it was a new period. There was a new government in France. Women had just won the right to vote. So this book looks at several different narratives, right? The industry, women's lives and their experience of fashion. And so this was a shift for them. And actually, when we get to the end of the 1960s and you have the student protests, May 68, and the beginning really of the second wave of feminism, I felt that was a good place to kind of end my story, because things shifted again. Although you could also argue, I mean, in the book, I look at the 50s and the 1960s, or the, generally where the ideas of those decades begin and end as separate entities, because of course they were and different. There were different kind of ideologies in those periods.
Yeah, and for sure different styles.
Different styles, different governments, different economies.
Yeah, and so it's interesting because I think a lot of people probably don't see fashion as political, right? But it definitely is. Yeah. How is fashion political now in contemporary times?
Well, fashion, I mean, there's always politics of identity, and the things that we wear can make kind of powerful statements. But I mean, of course, lots of people talk about the things that politicians wear and the histories of, wearing the color white for women, or there are other examples that are not coming to mind. And I think today, having a better understanding of fashion's history and how that should inform the way that we dress ourselves is one way that we can say that fashion is becoming more and more political. Understanding, the history of the underprivileged populations who made our clothes, and how that carries over to today.
Yeah. And materials that are used to make them, I assume.
Yeah, and understanding, what sustainable fashion is, and what ethical fashion is.
Right.
Is much more important today, and I think much more part of our getting dressed.
And speaking of, I guess, sustainable fashion, one of the garments that was on display in your exhibition was a corset made of wood.
Yes.
Right? Where can I get my hands on one of those? Do I have to? Is that an haute couture kind of deal?
Yeah.
Okay.
Unfortunately, you have to. This is not on the racks.
There's
No.
Not ready to wear anywhere. Okay.
But I can connect you to the designer.
Do you have any? I would appreciate that. Do you have any rules about fashion? Any hard and fast, must abide by
no white
rules?
after Labor Day?
Yeah, that kind of thing. Brown shoes, brown belt.
Oh, right? You should clash as much as you can.
Oh, really?
I'm all about clashing. Obviously not today, but no, I think that I don't have any rules, but I'm always, in all of the projects that I work on, trying to communicate the message that we should think about the things that we put on our bodies, and think about the wider significance of our experience of dress, how that relates to, the inner workings of ourselves, our minds, dress in ways that stand apart from the rest, even if that's just, being disruptive in a small way. Just thinking about.
What if you want to fit in, though?
Well, yeah, we all do want to fit in, and there's nothing wrong with that either.
If you're traveling, do you want to look like the people who live in that place, or do you because a lot of it's easy to spot an American in Europe, for example, right? They're the one wearing the
Hawaiian shirt.
The Hawaiian shirt, or I was going to say the Mickey Mouse shirt, right, and the shorts, and then and sneakers or whatever. Or German tourists are sort of notorious for wearing socks and sandals, right? Or you personally, when you travel, do you try to blend in, or do you not mind looking like you're not from that place?
Yes, I don't want to get myself in trouble here, but I definitely like to blend in those cases, but retain my own sense of
identity,
weirdness, my own sense of individualism too.
when I was going to your exhibition on Saturday, a couple days ago, I was buying a ticket for the ferry, the Staten Island ferry, and I helped someone buy their ticket. And she asked me if I was a tourist also, and I said yes. And she said, "Oh, but I thought you lived here." I always take that as a compliment if I'm in a place where I'm not, currently living, because I have lived here before. But if I'm not currently living in that place, or if I'm just visiting and they think I'm from there, I feel like I've achieved something.
Definitely.
Like I understand a little bit more about the culture.
Well, you've also been cultivating your Staten Island accent for years, so it's paid off.
I don't know if I could imitate it at all. But forget about it is the big. Did I say that right? Forget about it?
That was terrible.
But that's the big Staten Island phrase, right? Because when you drive in over the Verrazano Bridge, isn't it on a sign?
That's the Brooklyn. When you go into Brooklyn.
Oh, that's going into Brooklyn.
Yes.
Oh, I thought it was going to Staten Island.
Brooklyn did all that stuff. But no, we speak similarly.
Yeah.
But wait, you said that you were buying a ticket to the ferry? You mean the subway?
No. It wasn't from Whitehall. Okay. It was from where did I leave from? It wasn't the Staten Island ferry. It was a different ferry.
Okay, good. Yeah. Because we don't want to spread the word to all your viewers that you have to pay to get on the
ferry.
Yeah,
the Staten Island ferry is free.
Yes.
Don't buy a ticket from anyone. I had to buy a ticket though from a machine, by the way, because it was a different boat. It was a smaller.
It can be very
ferry.
Okay.
And I also would go up to like Midtown, and then I think a little further up, some of the other piers along Manhattan. $4.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is the NYC ferry.
Yeah.
Is $4, but at least you get to have the wind blow through your hair.
Yeah. Well, I sat inside because it was ridiculously hot out, and I wanted some cool air coming my way. Okay, but can you give me a phrase in Staten Island dialect? What something a Staten Islander would say, or how would they say it? What's that accent like?
I can't believe you're putting me on the spot. They would say to, I don't know.
Is that part of it? I don't know.
No. We actually asked, I'm going to avoid your question, but we in all of our interviews, we asked people, the last question was to tell us how, I'm from Staten Island because.
Right, yeah.
And most of them did say, because I talk like this or something.
Oh, that was pretty good.
Because of my accent.
So where can somebody go? Like what, is there a film or, music someone can listen to hear the Staten Island accent really popping out? Are any movies set in Staten Island?
Yeah. Well, recently Pete Davidson has been.
Oh yeah, the king of Staten Island.
Yeah,
right?
He's been doing that in his work. That film is pretty accurate.
Except for Bill Burr, because he's from Boston, and I don't think makes any attempt to speak in a Staten Island accent. Not from what I noticed anyway. But
yeah, you might be right. I have to rewatch.
You've seen it?
I saw it once.
Have you seen, he's a new TV show.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen the new show?
I saw a few episodes.
Good?
Yeah, it's good.
There are a lot of people in pop culture currently from Staten Island, right? So Pete Davidson, Colin Jost is from Staten Island.
Mm-hmm.
And does he live there now?
I don't think so.
With his wife, Scarlett Johansson?
I don't think so.
And their kids? Do they have kids?
I don't know.
Okay.
He did go to my prom, though.
Really?
He was the date of a friend of mine.
Oh yeah, because you went to an all-girls school, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Did you meet him?
All-girl. Probably hi-bye.
Do you remember what he wore?
Don't remember anything from that night.
Well, he seems like a nice guy. Let's see. Staten Island.
Who else? Are you thinking of other Anyway, sorry.
No, I was just thinking of other questions I want to ask you. Well, because we mentioned some pop culture figures. So do you have any fashion icons? Not necessarily pop culture people, but designers or anybody whose fashion you absolutely love?
Well, I kind of, yeah, of course. But I was going to say that I'm usually involved in one or two projects, research projects, and obsess over subjects in those studies. Mm-hmm. So right now, I did a little bit of research and writing for an upcoming exhibition on Gaby Aguillon, who's the founder of Chloe. Mm-hmm. That's in an exhibition coming to the Jewish Museum in New York. And I'm also...
Next year? Or when do you know when that's coming?
October
this year?
Or this fall sometime. And also working on not an exhibition, but a research project on 1970s fashion and women designers, women wearers. So people like Diane von Furstenberg and Anne Klein are major people of interest.
Yeah,
and
that
fashion
you're looking
makers.
into now.
Yeah.
Because in this book you talk. Well, Immanuel Kant plays a big role
Mm-hmm.
in this book, right? In Pret-a-Porter. And did you get to meet her?
Yes, I. Excuse me. She was a really important part of this research, mm-hmm. and was opened up her home, opened up her archive. Was just incredible person to be able to meet and
that's amazing.
And study. No, she's no longer with us, sadly. But yeah, there's a lot of women designers who are obsessions, or people who've also really inspired me in terms of fashion and otherwise. Mm.
And there's a number of images in here from her unpublished mm-hmm. memoir or something like that, right? Did she ever publish anything?
Never.
Never?
No.
Wow.
She wrote this massive memoir,
uh-huh.
and she never published it.
Wow.
So maybe that will be a future project.
Yeah. Well, it's amazing that you got access to that mm-hmm. stuff. That's really cool.
Yeah.
How would you rate? You can see what I'm wearing today.
I can.
Scale of 1 to 10. What do you think?
I'd say 11.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You really outdid yourself.
This outfit goes to 11. Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. And overall, from what you know about my style, what rating would you give me?
Yeah, I like your style. You have a look. You have your look, and you are, dedicated to looking good. Yeah. I don't know how I would define my own style, mm-hmm. but I know what I like. You're not like following any extreme subcultural. I don't think so. No. Yeah, I'm not a trendy person, at least not consciously. You go out of your way. I might be manipulated into being part of a trend, but I don't go out of my way to, be super current or anything. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that's good. Okay, thanks. How could you describe your own style? I guess you already have, right? You like to make, you like to be noisy, you say? Clash? Yeah, I think I do. Mm-hmm. Even if it doesn't appear that way to everyone. Mm-hmm. I'm also not dressing in obvious kind of extreme ways. Mm-hmm. But you're always making are you always making a conscious decision about what you wear and how it's going to look? Yeah, I think I put a lot of thought into into how I dress myself, and even if, or what's in my closet, because often I'll just get dressed really quickly and not necessarily think about it, or just dress to be, comfortable. But I like to wear a lot of older things that I've had for a long time, or that I find in vintage shops.
Oh yeah. Do you like? You must love going to thrift shops, right?
I do love a good thrift shop.
Yeah.
Find.
Do you want to name? Can you name like a favorite one that you like going to in Brooklyn?
I can name some. Well, one that I love is called Stella Dallas in Williamsburg. Great for denim, menswear, but for me, I love the new old stock. So things that were never worn but sold. They have a lot of things from the 70s.
Oh wow. Never worn? Huh. I mean, it's amazing to me that it would even survive.
Well, think about things that were not sold off today. What happens to it?
I don't know.
Sometimes it gets saved.
Huh.
Or
cool. I will have to check that out. Maybe I could find a nice new denim jacket.
Yes.
And on a related note, what do you know about Canada?
Lovely place.
Mm-hmm. Have you been?
I have.
Where to?
I've been to Montreal, and I've been to places in Vancouver and other places.
Oh, well, you've traveled extensively in Canada.
To the other, oh God, I'm terrible at geography.
Province? Toronto?
I've never been to Toronto.
Oh.
But like Newfoundland and...
You've been to Newfoundland?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. You've been around. Okay. This should be a breeze for you. This is Canadian trivia. Okay? There are 5 questions.
I'm ready.
Let's see how you do. Are you ready?
I've never been more ready to get all these wrong.
Okay, question 1. I doubt it. You seem like you've been around Canada. So, question 1. Which Canadian hockey superstar, native of Brantford, Ontario, is nicknamed the Great One?
Oh my God. That's going to be Mr. Wayne Gretzky.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Question 2. In 1979, which NHL Great One first stepped onto the ice to play in the NHL for the Edmonton Oilers?
The Edmonton Oilers?
Yeah.
Wow.
79.
That's also going to be Wayne Gretzky.
Correct, yeah. You are right.
Okay.
Edmonton Oilers, that was his first team in the NHL. 1979. Question 3. Which Canadian NHL Hall of Famer scored an astounding 378 goals in Pee Wee hockey before one day making his NHL debut as an Edmonton Oiler?
Is it Wayne Gretzky?
It is, yeah. You
also,
really know a lot.
Also, Edmonton shout out to Dr. Sonia Abrego. Who's from Edmonton.
Oh, okay.
Another a fashion historian that you also know.
We have met.
And love, yeah.
Do you think she would have gotten these questions correct so far?
Probably.
She knows a lot about Canada. She must, as a Canadian. Okay, question 4. Which Canadian professional hockey player, believed by many to be the GOAT, or greatest of all time?
Is this the last question, James?
There are 2 more. This is 4 or 5. Let me take it from the top. So, which Canadian professional hockey player, believed by many to be the GOAT, or the greatest of all time, was traded 3 times throughout the course of his NHL career.
3 times?
Yeah, he was traded 3 times.
Well, I think Wayne Gretzky was traded 2 times, so it's not going to be him. Is it Wayne Gretzky?
It is, yeah.
Okay, cool.
He was actually traded 3 times.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think that's correct. If he was traded 3 times, then he played for 4 teams, right? I might have to double check this one, but I'm pretty sure he was traded 3 times. Anyway, I wrote down Wayne Gretzky as the answer to this question. So far, you're 4 for 4. And this is the last one. Okay, question 5. Let's see if you can get a perfect 100%, 5 out of 5. Paulina Gretzky, wife of professional golfer Dustin Johnson. Johnson or Johnston? Johnson. Let me start over. Paulina Gretzky, wife of professional golfer Dustin Johnson, is the daughter of which retired Canadian NHL megastar?
I just don't know.
Come on, you must know. You must have an inkling.
Could it also be Wayne Gretzky, James?
It could, and it is.
That's my guess.
It is. Yeah, you're correct. Nice job. 5 out of 5. You really know your Canadian trivia.
Hardly.
Congratulations.
I never knew I was so good at it. But...
Well, should we wrap up?
Okay.
That's usually the last thing that I do in this podcast. So thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with me and talk to me about your work and your projects, your exhibition, and your book, and forthcoming projects. And I guess we could mention where people can learn more about you, right? If they're curious to see what else you have done or are going to do, where can people go to discover your work?
I guess you could go to my website, alexisromanoprojects.com, which I try to update. So hopefully, you can read you can see what I've written, because I do a lot of writing, outside of these projects as well.
For magazines, right? Fashion magazines, like.
Mainly like academic journals. Like there's some books and exhibition catalogs that I've written for, but magazines too. I write a lot for a trade magazine called Wear Global. But yeah, there's some other publications like Domus, Disegno that people might know. Okay, and they can find all that from your website. So I'll link to your website in the video description so people can easily find it. So thank you. Please give a round of applause to Dr. Alexis Romano. Thank you so much. Thank you, James. This was really fun. I'm glad you enjoyed it. And great job on that Canadian trivia. Thank God I have that to fall back on. I don't think you need to worry about falling back on anything. I mean...